Have you ever wondered why some mods have really stood the test of time, like Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, whilst other mods have bitten the dust, like Queen's another one bites the dust? I'm Foam Dagger, and this is Maximum Mods. Modding Nerf blasters has been going on for a really long time, and there's a huge wealth of information and guides out there on the internet, which is absolutely fantastic. The problem, especially for those who are newer to modding, is working through that information to find out what is still relevant today, especially with some of those older mods. So here to help you are my comments on 5 of those old school Nerf mods. My first ever mod was this Night Finder. This Night Finder. When I say mod, what I actually mean is that I removed the air restrictor and gave it an absolutely terrible paint job. Of course, when you had an N-Strike blaster which didn't shoot all that far to begin with, removing the air restrictor gave you quite a decent percentage increase in terms of performance. You compare that to the percentage increase that you would get out of removing the air restrictor from an Elite blaster now, and it's negligible by comparison. You add on top of that the fact that firing a blaster without the air restrictor increases the wear and tear. And indeed, dry firing can damage your blaster even further. Air restrictor, your air restrictors, In addition, with the advent of the smart AR system, the air restrictor actually becomes an integral part of the working of the blasters. So if you were to remove the ARs in something like, say, a 4 Victory, you'd end up with a very weak 4-dart shotgun rather than a blaster with decent performance which fires 4 darts one at a time. And for that reason, I really think that at this stage the removal of air restrictors ought to be consigned to the rubbish heap. Next, I want to talk about spring stretching, and this has absolutely nothing to do with those bizarre contraptions used by hairy-chested, mulleted guys in the 80s to give themselves big chest muscles. This is quite literally the practice of taking the spring out of your blaster, stretching it, and then putting it back into your blaster to try and get some kind of a performance increase. Even when this was first done, back in the days of the N-Strike blasters, I have no idea who thought this was a good idea. It simply does not work. A spring is a tempered component, and as soon as you start messing about with that, what happens is that you may get a brief increase in performance from your blaster, followed by your spring becoming completely useless. And back before we had third-party replacement springs available to us, the result of that was that your blaster was basically done for. Now, not only is this mod completely pointless anyway because it doesn't work, but the arrival of replacement springs that can be bought from third-party manufacturers completely nullifies the need to even think about doing this mod. Now I want to move on to a couple of mods that are still very much relevant today, and the first one of those is the voltage mod. As long as there have been electronic blasters, there has been the voltage mod. To begin with, that was essentially cramming as many batteries as you could into your blaster, be that daisy chaining together 9-volt batteries, or later on cramming trust fires into your blaster, which is a terrible idea. If you don't know about trust fires, look it up. Please don't use them. They are not safe. Later on you get to things like the use of lipos. Now you do still have to take care of your lipos. You have to make sure that you charge them correctly, that you don't overcharge them, that you check them to make sure that they are not damaged, and you have to feed them, and you have to pick up their poop, and you have to walk them, and you have to take them to the vet, and you have to... No, wait, that's... dogs. Hey, what was that all about? The voltage mod has in fact progressed into what is now the complete rewire and has led to this entire industry of third-party motors and flywheels and flywheel cages and switches and 3D printed triggers and everything you can think of. This fantastic melting pot of new ideas and potential which is constantly being added to. And if you own a soldering iron and you want to get into doing the whole rewire of electronic blasters, it's absolutely fantastic, it's brilliant fun, and there is so much space to create new kinds of mods. Number 4 on our list is truly proof positive that sometimes the simplest mods are the best, because at its core the speed loader is completely hollow because it's a tube. Essentially, the speed loader is a tube with the dart stuffed in it taped to another tube with a dart stuffed in it. Now, where this comes into play is if you've got something like a single shot pistol, like a Firestrike or back in the day a Night Finder, and you put an extended barrel on there to increase your muzzle velocity, you've then got to use something like a ramrod to shove your dart down inside the barrel to get your maximum sort of performance out of it. Whereas if you've got a speed loader, all you do is you connect a barrel that already has a dart in it, you fire, you pull it out, you connect your next barrel, and you're ready to go again. And that's an absolutely fantastic idea. When you're out on the field in a proper Nerf war, for example, it saves you so much time. And you know, they're still about today, they're still used, and they really have stood the test of time. And to be honest with you, they've not really changed since they were first thought up. Okay, so this last one is the one that's going to cause the most controversy and the one that's most likely to get me mobbed, but it is the plunger seal mod. Now, essentially, this is where you put a bit of electrical tape or some Teflon tape or something underneath the O-ring to pad it out to improve the seal between your plunger and your plunger tube. The idea being that less of the air escapes and it pushes all of the air then through the plunger and propels the dart forward with a greater volume of air. The first problem for me with this is that, especially more recently, Nerf have taken to producing tapered plunger tubes. So if you create a seal which is good at the top end of the plunger, by the time the plunger gets to the bottom end of the tube, it's going to start to snag, and you may even reach a point, if you overpad it, where your plunger won't even reach the end of your tube, and then you end up with dead space, which is going to be absolutely terrible for your performance. SSGT on BritNerf, in fact, did a lot of research into this, and you know, you can Google it and you can read his research for yourself, but essentially what he found is that actually any kind of attempt to improve that seal adversely affects performance of the blaster, and for that reason, in my opinion, you know, it's another one of those mods that we've tried and it's basically been debunked, and really we should be spending our time doing more worthwhile mods. So that is my list. Do you disagree with anything that I've had to say, or do you think that maybe I've missed some mods that I ought to have included? If so, stick it in the comments down below, and if there's enough there, then I will absolutely make another video on the same sort of lines. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and remember, there's no wrong way to Nerf.